Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is Amy Brooks, Secretary of Early Childhood Education. Madam Secretary, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me today.
Sounds like you're not used to hearing that yet.
No, I'm not, and it's funny, a joke in my house, that was one of my favorite shows before we even knew this would transpire, so.
Well, sorry for the formality, but you are the new Secretary of Early Childhood Education, so congratulations on your appointment from the Governor's Office. I was hoping you could share with our audience some about your background, what led you to this role.
Yes, so I was a classroom teacher. I've always been around children. Grew up in Prattville at the Y under my father, teaching children lots of gross motor development. Went on to AUM and spent 19 years in the classroom. And the last 4 years of those 19 were actually in a first class pre-K classroom. And although I'd been in the classroom 15 years before that, when I walked into a first class pre-K classroom, I was just like, wow, this is it. This is what I was made for. Just loved watching 4-year-olds develop. Really appreciated everything that our department offered to teachers in this position, the materials, the environment, the professional development that comes along with it. Never saw myself leaving because I was like, I have found my happy place. And, lo and behold, I ended up at the department in 2019 serving as what we call as a coach facilitator. So all of our classrooms that are state funded, that are first class pre-K classrooms, receive coaching support, and those coaches are employed by our department. So my role was to go and support the first class pre-K coaches that were going out among regions. So I walked in that role for 3 years, thought I found another sweet spot, and lo and behold, found myself working with our pre-K to third grade initiative, administering all the funding and grants for that program that's part of Governor Ivey's Strong Start, Strong Finish, and also working with the implementation and management of the statewide assessment tool that we use, which is Teaching Strategies Gold. And was rocking and rolling in that, and then was this opportunity came in front of me, and it was, although it was a little, knees shaking, when you just know that something's right, you just know that something's right. Children are at the heart of all that I do, and will be my North Star in every decision that I make, and I'm honored to be able to continue the charge for our department, especially since I feel like I've just kind of come up through our department, starting as a teacher, and then the various roles that have allowed me access to work with many programs and other stakeholders.
Well, I do think it's interesting to hear about your background because you've been through so many different levels, including the classroom. I think that seems to me be really important in your leadership role of having all those years of experience, because you're now, asking people to go and do that role, and you've been there.
Right. It definitely, I think, helps have someone that's been in that seat to be able to speak into what are we asking teachers to do, because we want what's best for children, but also in knowing what's best for children, we need to make sure that our teachers are supported in walking this out. And so really having that understanding of what are we asking our teachers, how are we lifting them up, how are we supporting the workforce so that they can carry out what we're asking them to do. And then just being able to speak about the magic that I have experienced and be able to help share that narrative across the state about what is occurring in these classrooms is a good thing.
Magic, I like that. I want to get more to that, but you mentioned this P3 initiative. This is a different, this is the next level from what we really traditionally think of as first class pre-K and early childhood. So talk about what this initiative is and why it's important.
Okay, certainly. This initiative was a grassroots effort. In 2017, one of our first class pre-K sites said, what we're doing in pre-K is really working. Why are we stopping it? Why are we not, continuing, building on this bridge into kindergarten? And so various stakeholders came together, and the first P3 classroom was started in 2017 down in Coffee County. And that year they were awarded, we had 35 classrooms, and it was a braiding of funding as the program got established. And here we are in 2025 with 450 classrooms statewide in our pre-K to third grade initiative, and we also, are fully state funded now through the Strong Start, Strong Finish. So what that looks like can vary from school to school. They have to have a first-class pre-K classroom because that's the bridge that we're building upon. And typically they will bridge up into kindergarten and can choose to go to first grade, second grade, and third grade. We'll have about 15 third grade classrooms this year, which is very exciting. So just taking that foundation of best practice, student-led opportunities, investigative learning, and help working alongside the teacher, state expectations also, and helping them implement these practices in their classrooms in the best way that we can. The grant is a $20,000 grant. Most of that goes to funding the environment, setting it up where there's learning areas rather than rows of desks, hands-on manipulatives, and also professional development with the teacher. And our P3 classrooms, like our pre-K classrooms, also receive coaching support throughout the year.
Seems like something that we would want to replicate, far and wide. And
Yes.
I'll get to that. Well, speaking of expanding, it was, in the legislature this year, they've sought increases for first-class pre-K funding, basically wanting to offer it to more students, right?
Yes.
I saw a number, 55 new classrooms. That was in a press release. I know it may not be some existing classrooms, but talk about what we're looking at in terms of expansion of first-class pre-K to more classrooms, and what we can expect from that.
Yes, and 55 is right. There's always some shifting of classrooms. We received funding for 30 brand new classrooms, and we granted 35. One thing that we were able to do this year, I'll speak more in just a minute about a study that we did with the University of Alabama, but through the results, we gained a lot of knowledge also about how sometimes it can be costly to administer first-class pre-K, especially in public schools. Maintaining the quality and the level of teaching degrees that we require. So we were able to up our grant amounts also to help support that. And so that effort, we hope will incrementally allow more schools to apply that might not have. Last year we had close to 1,500 classrooms, so the new 55 will get us over that. Thank you.
I think part of that also is in terms of expansion. We say a lot. We like to toot our horn about having the highest quality pre-K in the whole country, for quality. But part of expansion, it's been kind of a slow roll because you could go expand it into every classroom in the state right now, but maybe we would lose that quality. Is that kind of part of y'all's strategy?
Yes, that is part of our strategy. The National Institute for Early Education Research, the NIEER rating, we've received that rating for 19 years in a row, and that helps us measure quality, looking at, making sure our workforce is developed, lead teacher credentials as well as auxiliary teachers, providing professional development for them. Also looking at class size, teacher-child ratio, among other things. So those are things that are in our guidelines and that are expectations, if you are funded one of these classrooms. And when we think about expansion, we do have to be, intentional and incremental in our growth. And part of that access and cost study that I spoke about earlier.
Yeah, talk about that.
So that revealed to us that we helped us identify, so we could be more intentional, 20 counties that had high wait lists but low access. And so, why got us curious, do we have so many children on a wait list? Why aren't there places for them to go?
So that becomes a target for you?
Yes. And the study identified some of the barriers were, having spacing. If we think about 75% of our classrooms last year were in a public school. So that was about 1,100, I think, of our 1,500. So do they have spaces in their buildings to add on more pre-K, even if there is a demand? Something else that the study shared was transportation. It is hard to get the children to and from these places, especially with work schedules of parents, and they're driving children to other locations, and then after school care. So What can we do to help provide and partner in areas where we might not have partnered before, to think about breaking down those barriers? And specifically in those 20 counties first, because we would like to lower those wait lists, as best that we can, so that we can continue on this path of growth.
I wanted to ask you about this. We hear a lot about emotional and mental health. They just passed a cell phone ban for high school kids, right? But it strikes me, because we hear a lot about anxiety amongst children and everything, and maybe we're looking at it in a little different way than the previous generation. But it strikes me this could start as early as pre-K, right? In terms of their emotional well-being and how it could, they could stand to benefit from pre-K. So talk about that in terms of emotional and mental health for youngsters.
Absolutely. Well, one thing that we are, we're really locking arms with the Department of Mental Health and really coming together to the table about what kind of supports can we put in place for our children, families, and teachers, because it's also a hardship on the teachers as they are supporting children that might be coming in the classroom with anxiety and things that we haven't seen before due to the use of screens and various other reasons. Something else that we do in every one of our classrooms, our assessment tool that we use statewide looks at the whole child, and one piece of that is the social emotional development of the child. So teachers are helping children manage their feelings. When we talk about manage their feelings, what happens when I didn't get the snack that I want, or what happens when I have to wait my turn? How do I learn to share? A lot of these things we think children are going to come in the classroom, know how to share, know how to stand in line and wait their turn, and those are things that have to be taught and skills that have to be taught. So this assessment tool helps them see birth to age 8, where are they in these widely held expectations, and what's the next right step to take. So you would see that in the block center, a lot of negotiation about, it's my block, can I have a turn, how do I wait my turn, you knocked over my tower, speaking also about boundaries, hey, I'm building here, can you build over here? Those types of things are ongoing in our playful learning opportunities throughout the day. Also, we think about cognitive development, when the children are out in the learning areas, helping them persist when it's hard rather than giving up, right? Challenge themselves, get excited about learning new things, and also setting a plan. What steps do I need to take to do that plan, and helping me accomplishment. Like today, I want to go to the art center and I want to paint a picture of my mom, and then I'm going to put it in my cubby. Those little things that we take for granted that really translate up into where we are as adults and might struggle with.
To say, it's the little things, but they're so foundational.
Yes. So all of our classrooms use that tool, as well as our P3 classrooms also.
Fascinating stuff. And look, I could talk about it all day, but congratulations on your new role as secretary. Sounds like you're really meant for the job. We're excited about First Class. It's such a meaningful program for the state. It's really a gem for the state, and I hope you'll come back and share some of the progress as we go forward.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back.